Okay, it is out. The 2024 Arizona Cardinals regular season schedule. Cardinals did, Paul, get that one primetime game more than a year ago. Did not get an international game. And the bye week is somewhat, quote-unquote, normal in week 11. What do we think?
Reasonable and rational, the bye week, which is typically what the players go for first and foremost. And yeah, after week 14 last year, week 13 the year before, you get back more in line with 10 games to start, 7 games down the stretch they come after the bye. And then, well, Danny, I threw out the Paulie prop bet earlier about how many primetime games, so I guess we were both wrong.
No.
No?
That's not true.
You sure?
Yeah,
I
I'm
threw
pretty
out
sure.
1.5 and you went over.
No. It was not 1.5. It was like 2.5 or 3.5, and I said the under because I thought there would be 2 primetime games.
Well,
so I said the under.
Here's the thing. I do believe there is a chance for flex possibility,
Yes.
right? I mean, you get into like Minnesota late, even like Chicago and New York Jets. I mean, you're talking Aaron Rodgers, you're talking Caleb Williams. If both those teams take off, like a lot of people are projecting, and the Cardinals are winning their share of games, boom, those could be elevated.
You can start flexing games as early as week 5. As far as if you want to change that matchup. But yeah, the Cardinals do get the one primetime game. It is against the Los Angeles Chargers on Monday, October 21st. A home game, State Farm Stadium on ESPN+. 6 p.m. is the kickoff. But outside of that, Paul, I think you got off kind of easy as far as the weather is concerned. Maybe just that late trip to Carolina. And thankfully, week 1 in Buffalo, no snow is expected when you're talking about a game on September 8th.
Yeah, the prayers were answered. The schedule gods, they did answer in 3 out of 4. I mean, you got Buffalo week 1. You got Green Bay in mid-October, week 6, right? At Miami, week 8, late October. That should be, absolutely splendicular if you ask me. And then Carolina, week 16, right before Christmas. That has the potential, Danny, to get a little dicey.
Well, it looks like the weather is going to hold up for us that travel. This is a wacky schedule. I'm just going to say it. I maybe this is just because I've never experienced a schedule like this where you've got 3 straight home games. There's only one instance where you alternate from home to away to home. Every other trip is you're traveling for back-to-back weeks, not on the same coast, so it doesn't appear like the Cardinals will stay maybe on the East Coast for a week between games.
Nope.
It is what it is. I mean, at some point, right, like you got a lot of schedules you have to work through. It's just, it's wacky to me that you're going to start on the road and then have 3 straight home games, and then again, every other time you travel with the exception of Miami on October 27th, it's back-to-back road games, and you've got back-to-back home games. It's just different.
Not only wacky, but the schedule makers did the Cardinals no favors. You look at the start of the schedule. Yeah, on the road at Buffalo, 5 of your first 6 games are against playoff opponents from a year ago. Now, what do those teams look like when you face them in those particular weeks? But that is a tough stretch to begin a season. The good news is, though, you have a healthy Kyler Murray, knock on wood, all season long.
Yeah, you start obviously at Buffalo, and then you have the Rams, you have Lions, playoff teams, Washington at home. Didn't make. I cannot believe the top revenge games as listed by NFL.com. There were 10 of them. There were 6 honorable mention, and Cliff Kingsbury coming back to the AZ didn't qualify. Come on now, Washington in Week 4 at State Farm Stadium. And then you go to the 49ers and to the Packers. And last we saw those 2 teams, they were playing really good ball in the postseason. So, yes, it is a gauntlet right out of the gate in terms of strength of schedule. Now, if you can somehow persevere, right, and you can navigate those choppy waters, and then boom, all of a sudden, schedule's a lot more forgiving on the back half.
Let's go week by week. And, Paul, you want to talk about a revenge game. Week 1 at the Bills. If he is on the roster, Danny, we need to make sure that this reunion is set up pregame. Can you do me a favor, week 1, that Paul Calvisi is able to reunite with Andy Isabella?
That's good. Andy, I forgot about that, Craig. Thank you for the reminder.
Well, I feel pretty strongly that one of those two people is going to be with their current organization by the start of the regular season.
Okay.
And I feel pretty confident it's going to be Paulie Pigskin.
Okay.
So
Well,
no promises, Craig.
That was almost a double backhand there. So
No, Paul.
let me give you a holy cannoli stat on Buffalo because they hit the reset button on what was a pretty stout team and roster. Do you realize they closed the season with 5 straight wins when Stephon Diggs was a non-factor? In those 5 games, he had 24 catches for just over 200 yards receiving, 0 touchdowns. So they traded him away. And they brought in Keon Coleman, obviously, and they brought in a whole bunch of new different receivers and young receivers. They got free agents like Curtis Samuel and Mac Hollins and Chase Claypool. And so, you know what? Playing Josh Allen, as good as he is, but playing him and those receivers early, right out of the gate, when maybe they don't have the chemistry and the cohesion yet as a group, I actually like the Cardinals' chances considering. I mean, no Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer in that secondary, their standout safety tandem. If you're going to get Buffalo, you want them early. So you know what? Week 1, let's do it.
First Cardinals trip to Buffalo since 2016, and of course everyone remembers the last time these two teams were on the field at the same time. State Farm Stadium, the Hail Murray pass to DeAndre Hopkins in 2020. So after going on the road for week 1, it's 3 straight at home. First time since 2019 the Cardinals have had a stretch of 3 straight weeks at home. They'll host the Rams, the Lions, and then the Commanders. Danny, you look at the Rams, and yeah, it's week 2, but for the first time in a long time, no Aaron Donald. Don't have to worry about number 99.
That's true. However, it's pretty clear that was the Rams' big intention with their first 2 draft picks in Jared Verse out of Florida State and Braden Fisk also out of FSU. And then you add the running back out of Michigan, Blake Corum, when you've got Harbaugh. Or I'm thinking
Sean
LA,
McVay.
wrong LA. Right.
Yep.
But Sean McVay, who we have seen does a very nice job at adjusting when needed against the Cardinals. And I think about being in LA last year when the Cardinals defense gave up very minimal rushing yards. And then what happened the first play was running play, and then it wasn't just the first one. They ran like 9 or 10 straight run plays
right
against
after halftime.
The second half against the Cardinals defense. So McVay is scary to go against because he does a nice job adjusting when he needs to. And he's someone who's had the Cardinals number over the years. What is it, Paul?
I have it at 13 out of 15.
That the Rams have
against 4 different Cardinals
Yes.
head coaches. It would be Bruce Arians, it would be Steve Wilkes, it would be Cliff Kingsbury, and then last year, of course, with Jonathan Gannon. And to Danny's point, Kyron Williams averaged better than 7 yards a carry in the 2 games combined. So if you want to figure out if the Cardinals have resolved their rush defense, then guess what? You're getting the Rams in week 2, and I'm guessing that Sean McVay will probably pick up where he left off, and they're going to try and stoke that thing between the tackles. They've rebuilt the offensive line over the last couple of years. So here you go. I mean, that really is Cardinals in the history of State Farm Stadium in home openers 12-6-1. So historically, Cardinals have been very successful in their home opener, but also historically, they've had no tougher opponent and matchup than the Rams and Sean McVay.
By the way, that one tie against the Lions in Kyler Murray's first game in 2019, and the Lions are the Cardinals' home opponents in Week 3 on September 22nd. A lot of money to Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell this offseason, and the Lions were everyone's darlings a year ago, coming off their first division win since 1993. And then the month ends on September 29th, another home game, the third of 3 in a row against the Commanders. And yes, Dan Quinn, first-year head coach with Washington. And yes, Danny, Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator with Jaden Daniels, coming back from where he began his college career at Arizona State.
And Zach Ertz.
Yep.
Oh, forgot about that. Good call.
Yep.
That'll be an interesting one. I have a feeling that there aren't many players that are on this roster that were here, had big-time roles with Kingsbury, but you'd imagine, I mean, it's hard to say, right, like, emotions will be high. It's not like he's the head coach in Washington. So as an offensive coordinator, I mean, obviously, since he was the head coach here, you would expect that some of the players might want to win that game, maybe a little more, even if they're not going to say that. But again, he's not the head coach, so I don't want to make this a bigger deal than it is because he's coming in as an OC.
And here's the thing. One of the reasons that Cliff Kingsbury got that job was based on the work he did with Kyler Murray. Washington knew they were going to be taking a rookie quarterback right near the top of the draft. They did in Jaden Daniels, and he had a ridiculously successful year, both throwing it and running it. 40 touchdown passes, 10 touchdown runs at LSU. He won the Heisman. I heard Cliff Kingsbury about a week ago tell the Washington media that he's got to make sure that the offense is year one of Jaden Daniels and Washington Commanders offense and not year 5 of an Arizona Cardinals offense. Meaning he's got to structure it and then he's got to simplify it so everyone can process it. But, I mean, you have a Washington team that's going to be starting its 8th different opening season quarterback in 8 years. Ton of turnover. Once again, you want to get Washington and any rookie quarterback early. And that's one downside perhaps a little bit in this is you get the Bears and you get the Patriots and you get Carolina with Bryce Young, right? And Minnesota with J.J. McCarthy all in the second half of the season. The only rookie quarterback you're getting early is Jaden Daniels with Washington week 4.
So we close out September. Let's look at October. And after 3 straight at home, back-to-back road games in San Francisco, in Green Bay, first trip to Green Bay since 2018, when in the snow, the Cardinals upset the Packers, and Mike McCarthy was fired before the Cardinals even left Wisconsin. I believe it was while you guys were on the tarmac, correct, Paul?
Yes, we got word while we were waiting. I think they were de-icing the plane at that point, and that was Larry Fitzgerald on 3rd and 19, or maybe it was 3rd and 23, ridiculous one-handed catch to extend what would be the game-winning drive with Josh Rosen and Steve Wilkes. So there you go. You're going into Lambeau, but this time it's going to be earlier in the year. But I tell you, based on what Jordan Love looked like in the playoffs last year and the kind of ball he was playing, I mean, this one has a chance to be a real barn burner. They've reset the defense in Green Bay. They got a lot of draft picks, both in the secondary and then also in the inside linebacker group. They're not exactly known for having all that stout of a defensive front. So you know what? I could see that being a high-scoring affair at Lambeau.
By the way, that's a 10 a.m. kickoff, one of 3 10 a.m. kickoffs the Cardinals have. They have 5 early kickoffs overall, a couple of 11 a.m. kickoffs later in the season. Then for the first time in a couple of years now, Danny, the Cardinals do get a primetime game, Week 7. Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers will be at State Farm Stadium on Monday Night Football. Harbaugh, familiar with the Cardinals, 6-2 when he was the 49ers head coach, but this is a Chargers team that does have a good quarterback, Justin Herbert, just a team that just hasn't really been able to piece it all together with him as the QB.
It's going to be interesting, though, how much the offensive identity changes with Harbaugh and running the ball and how different that's going to look with Harbaugh coaching this team. Herbert is a good quarterback. He's got the arm. He's also a wild card. I feel like there are times where you see these really spectacular plays by him, and then there's also moments where you're thinking, what on earth? So that one to me feels like a wild card. I remember when the Chargers were at State Farm Stadium, I guess last year, 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
It was a close one, and the Cardinals ended up losing that one. So that one to me is a wild card. It's a primetime game. It is on ESPN Plus because there is another Monday Night Football game going on at the same time. But one primetime game this year, which is one more than last year.
Should mention, though, locally, for those that watch Cardinals football within Maricopa County, it will be on over-the-air television, so you don't have to worry about ESPN Plus. But for those Cardinal fans outside of that, yes, ESPN Plus, because the Ravens play the Buccaneers at the same time.
And I wrote this down. And the NFL is the last league to make every single local broadcast available over the air of any of that. But at the same time, if you want to see every single NFL game this year, let's just say you're the 99th percentile. I wrote this down. You would need access this year to NBC, CBS, Fox, ABC, Sunday Ticket, NFL Network, ESPN, ESPN Plus, Peacock, Amazon Prime, and Netflix on Christmas.
It's like close to $1,000, isn't it?
I mean, they are
all those streaming services.
They're spreading the wealth right there, and everyone's wetting their beak, so to speak, on the whole which platform is it on. Here's the thing with the Chargers, and just me listening to everything that Jim Harbaugh has said, Danny, to your point, and the physicality that he's bringing. And it's going to be a reset of what he did with the 49ers when they led the league in rushing and rushing attempts. I mean, you have a Chargers team, and over the past 3 years, I wrote this down, they've run it on only 37% of their offensive plays, tied for second lowest in the NFL. I'm guessing that's going to be a complete flip-flop. They're going to be like second in the NFL in running percentage. And Harbaugh has already talked about instilling that physicality and the mentality that goes with it. And what he's doing with the Chargers so far reminds me a lot of what Jonathan Gannon did with the Cardinals all of last season. And then what'd you see? By the end of last year, 3 of the last 4 games, Cardinals ran for more than 200 yards in each of those games. And every team they played on the schedule knew they had played a football game because it was physical.
That Monday night game against the Chargers, the only home game for the Cardinals in the month of October, which closes out on a short week in Miami against the Dolphins. And this I'm curious about because by week 8, who's going to cover Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Odell Beckham Jr., who the Dolphins just added, and all of a sudden you're waiting until week 8 for, is that a Max Melton, is that an Isaiah Jones, or some one of these younger cornerbacks, defensive backs, Danny, that all of a sudden get to face the cheetah?
Elijah Jones, yeah, you're going to get Paul excited talking about training camp battles when you're looking at the cornerbacks. That's a big reason why that's one of the more exciting competition battles we're expecting to see throughout the offseason and throughout training camp. I'm glad because I don't think it's going to be too humid or maybe not a lot of rain at that time of the year.
I will take that every time because last time we were in Miami, it was coming down in sheets. It was late in the season. It was the rainy season. So October 27th sounds, knock on wood, to be just about the sweet spot, Miami weather when you're going to head down there. I love the way they did their schedule release. The videos all the teams put out. It lasted 22 seconds. They called it the fastest schedule release, and it was led by Tyreek Hill, right? The fastest player in the NFL. And yes, it's going to be a track meet, and you better have team speed, and you better have a defensive game plan going against Mike McDaniel and everything he's going to dial up. And the Miami Dolphins, So look, here's the thing. They lost a lot of talent on defense. Christian Wilkins, they lost Xavier Howard, and their corner. So once again, I could see another high-scoring affair when you go down and take on the Dolphins.
So through 8 weeks, Cardinals again now go into the month of November with back-to-back home games. They've got the Bears at State Farm Stadium for the first time since 2018, and then the Jets coming in on week 10. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron going to be healthy by week 10? A year ago, he lasted all of what? A couple of snaps?
4 snaps.
4 snaps. So I would hope that Aaron Rodgers is healthy enough to make that game.
Wasn't he claiming he could have been healthy enough if they had a deeper playoff run? I mean,
he was. He was practicing.
There's no question if he's going to be healthy week 10.
He claims a lot of things.
I'm just saying, there's no question he's going to be healthy week 10 if you're talking about recovering from his Achilles injury.
Did he go to Ashland, Oregon this offseason and do the darkness retreat where he's able to, quote, touch the answers? Did he do that yet? We'll have to check.
Look, I just got to say I am grateful that if we're playing Chicago, it is home at State Farm Stadium, and I will leave it at that.
And look,
and that's nothing against the city of Chicago. I love Chicago. It's very specifically against Soldier Field.
That game is full of storylines. That's why I say I identify that as a candidate to be flexed. Maybe, just maybe.
The rookie quarterback, the 2 rookie wide receivers.
2 number 1 picks overall, Heisman winning quarterbacks, the receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze. Obviously, Keenan Allen has gone to Chicago. They made that trade for Montez Sweat. We all saw it last year in December. That was a totally different defense. They went near the bottom of the league to near the top of the league in scoring defense. Once they brought in the premier edge rusher, it just seemed to set the entire defense. Jonathan Gannon has a lot of respect for Matt Eberflus, who he worked under once upon a time earlier in his career. So that has a lot of potential. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers, and we all know his track record at State Farm Stadium. You can just cue up some of those crazy wild card losses, playoff losses he had against the Cardinals over the years. So that, at that point, with the Jets defense, and if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy and some of the weapons they have, Jets could be very formidable as well.
Chicago is one of the more exciting matchups to me for all the reasons you just mentioned. I mean, I know we're saying all of this and the schedule just dropped, and there's a lot that can and will change when you're talking about the teams and as you get closer to actually playing these games. But that is one of the more intriguing matchups of the Bears and the Cardinals.
And Bird Gang, if you want to be at State Farm Stadium to see Kyler Murray against Caleb Williams, azcardinals.com/buy tickets. That's azcardinals.com/buy tickets. So through 10 weeks, the Cardinals finally get their bye on the week 11, November 17th, their earliest bye in 3 seasons, weeks 12, 13, and 14, the past 3 years. So we're getting closer to the middle of the season. But then the final stretch, Danny, and you look at these last 7 games, 4 of them after the bye are division games, 2 at home, 2 on the road, and then the quirk of the schedule and the fact that you played the Seahawks twice in 3 weeks.
That is pretty interesting. I would say hopefully the Cardinals could use it to their advantage, but Seahawks are going to be in the exact same scenario of knowing what you just saw. You come off the bye week and you're at Seattle November 24th, and then you go to Minnesota after that on December 1st, which is actually probably one of my favorite stadiums, or maybe my favorite stadium to visit. It'll be interesting to see how Seattle kind of shakes out this year. And again, the fact that you're not going to see them till that late in the season, and then you see them twice in 3 weeks. And then that's really the start of your heavy NFC West portion of your schedule.
I have the Seahawks down for 2 wins this year. Can I say that?
Last place Seahawks?
Yeah, I'm hoping.
You need to trademark that.
I'm hoping that we can use the words last place Seahawks next offseason. I enjoy it so. And to see the 12s twice in 3 weeks, yeah, that'll be a little rough. There's no doubt about that. There's potential for big rain on November 24th at Seattle. We'll see how that comes to be. But I just point to the Seahawks' struggling offensive line. And I'm curious about the matchup, like Darius Robinson, Byron Murphy II, the 2 top interior D linemen off the board in round 1 of the draft. There's that. Geno Smith didn't look anywhere last year like he did the year before at quarterback. So we'll see where exactly Seattle is first year under their brand new head coach, Mike McDonald, and what exactly that means, minus, Coach Double Rainbow, Pete Carroll, and okay, what is the vibe and the culture like exactly, and how are the fans buying in? Because over the last couple of years, more than once when we were up there and the Cardinals would take a lead or make a big play, the 12s turned on the home team and started booing.
Paul, scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to see J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota?
I am curious to see that.
I didn't say curious. I said excited.
I'll put that an 8 on the old.
Yeah, that sounds right.
On the old Richter scale.
Okay.
Well, and once again, what is he going to be? He's already talking about how he has mastered the playbook. Mr. Big Brain, J.J. McCarthy. So what's it going to be like when you're playing him in December? And how far along has that offense come, especially with Justin Jefferson and company? So we'll see. But Danny makes a great point. Minnesota is an outstanding road trip. That building is top-notch. And so we'll see. Once again, when you're going against some of these rookie quarterbacks, I got to give advantage Cardinals and Kyler Murray right from the get-go, knowing nothing about the situation, at that point in the season. If they're still playing a rookie at quarterback, you got to install the Cardinals as a favorite.
All together now, let there be a 4th QB.
Exactly. Even though it wasn't in the top 4, doesn't mean there wasn't the prospect.
You were still right, Paul.
There was still a 4th quarterback drafted in the top 10. It just wasn't the one that we had all talked about for 3+
Cardinals
months.
had settled on Marvin Harrison Jr., so ultimately it was a moot point. But we just said give them options in case they are interested in trading out at number 4.
Cardinals, by the way, playing 5 teams with new head coaches, including 3 first-year head coaches. We talked about one in Mike McDonald. The other one is Gerard Mayo. The Patriots are coming to town week 15, December 15th. Spent the past 5 seasons as the linebackers coach for New England, talking about Gerard Mayo. And once again, Danny, another rookie quarterback, Drake May, who was selected 3rd overall. But now if he is the starter, which I'm pretty safe to say I think he's at that point going to be your quarterback, he will have a number of games under his belt, and there'll be film on the young player.
Right. Will that be enough? New England was not very good last year. They're not projected to be very good this year. And again, to Paul's point, having a rookie quarterback is going to feel much more comfortable in week, what is that? 15 compared to seeing a rookie quarterback in week 4. Where things stand right now before the season is even remotely close to starting, I don't know that that would be enough given what New England has and what they have and haven't done, but it's still interesting and fun to get to see a rookie quarterback and new head coach and how that changes the identity of things. And we'll get to see Marco Wilson make his return to State Farm Stadium as well.
I know Craig's saying to himself right now, I need a holy cannoli stat on the Patriots. Last year, they were dead last in the NFL with a pass block win rate of just 42%. Translation, the O-line stinks. And so we'll see if Drake May is even healthy at that point in the season, considering the Patriots' offensive line, because they're coming out of the gates not only starting a rookie quarterback, but they're going to be starting a rookie left tackle and rookie left guard, if you believe all the reports out of New England. So that's why I wanted New England as the opener, to be honest with you, based on that. So, okay, you got to wait. They're going to have some experience under their belt. But you're talking about a team that ever since Tom Brady left is 29-38. So they have not been good. And last year the bottom fell out. They went 4-13. And by the way, here's the best story I saw about the New England Patriots just cruising around. See, we had a lot of time today with the schedule release, right, to do a little intel. So apparently the Patriots fans have their second first-round quarterback in 3 years. Mac Jones went in the first round 3 years ago, and he also wore number 10. So the Patriots fans, not wanting to cough up the cash for a brand new jersey, they've taken their existing number 10 jerseys and they've just covered up the nameplate. And instead of Jones, they put May back there. And so they've used a assortment of different sort of athletic tape and markers to just change the nameplate on the back of their existing number 10 jerseys.
Anything to save a buck, apparently,
Exactly.
these days.
Yeah. So Patriots cost themselves some jersey sales, apparently, by awarding Drake May number 10. That's the moral of the sports business angle there.
So from one first-year head coach in Week 15, Gerard Mayo, to another one in Week 16 when the Cardinals go on the road to the Panthers. Dave Canales, who spent last season as the Buccaneers offensive coordinator. And you talk about young quarterbacks, Bryce Young, year 2. Is this not the sophomore slump, but is this the year 2 improvement, that jump from year 1 to year 2? And considering you're getting the Panthers in Week 16, what's this game going to look like? Again, on the road, perhaps weather a factor. And this game, Dani, kicks off at 11 a.m. right before Christmas. So while you're in Carolina, you can do some holiday shopping.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Craig. Again, another team where you had high expectations last year and just did not meet those, and how realistic is it to expect a jump from that? I'm not really sure. I do think that Bryce Young has a lot of talent. Have they put enough talent around him to protect him, to give him options to throw? I mean, there's a lot that Carolina needs to do in order to continue to trend upwards. So it'll be interesting seeing them at the end of the year if they have done enough of that.
Yeah, I mean, they finished not only dead last in terms of the standings at 2-15, they were last in scoring, they were last in total yards. My favorite moment of the offseason, bar none, was Luke Combs, country music superstar and noted Carolina Panthers fan, tweeting out, "What are we even doing? Are we firebombing the whole team?" when they traded Brian Burns and, in his opinion, should have got a first-round pick back from the Giants. So you have that. Bryce Young, I mean, he was a crash test dummy. He got sacked 62 times in 16 games last year. Can they fix the offensive line? To Danny's point, you look at the wide receivers. They traded for Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, round 2 last year. Then they added Xavier Legette out of South Carolina. They took that round 4 tight end out of Texas, Jadavian Sanders. So they're trying to give him some weapons. They're trying, but even Dan Morgan, the GM, admitted it's not a one-year fix. So what state will the Carolina Panthers be in at that point in the season? Once again, I've marked a W down on December 15th.
Dave Canales, by the way, saying that he'll call the offense. At least that's the plan here early in the offseason. We'll see what happens when the regular season begins, especially this late in the season, talking about Week 16. And then the season closes with back-to-back division games, Week 17 on the road in Los Angeles against the Rams. That will be either Saturday or Sunday, December 28th, December 29th, and then Week 18, a home game against the 49ers, either January 4th or 5th. And you hope at this point, remember a year ago, this Cardinals team went winless in the division. Can the Cardinals pick up a division win, especially, Dani, if this team hopes to have aspirations for playing meaningful football late in the season? You have to win a handful of these division games if you want to be in contention.
Absolutely. That's the first hurdle you have to get through if you're going to try and play meaningful football and make a playoff run, is you have to be competitive within your own division. And having the 49ers, who you close out your regular season with, is a tough task to have to overcome them within the division. The good news is the Cardinals were incredibly competitive last year. And even though we haven't seen this new group all together out on the field, you can say that they have added significant talent to this roster. So if you're going to be able to carry over that competitiveness and the fight and the scrappiness and the grit that we saw, which I expect to see because this is the same coaching staff, you would expect that that's going to translate to more wins and you're going to be more competitive within the division. So those things, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I don't know, it's a tough division. I can sit here and confidently say that the Cardinals are going to be significantly more competitive within the division this year.
Yeah, somebody needs to do something in this division about the 49ers. They're definitely the bully on the block right now. They've won 5 in a row against the Seahawks. They've won 4 in a row against the Cardinals. They've won 9 of their last 10 regular season games against the Rams. Shanahan owns Sean McVay, the two guys who worked together in Washington once upon a time. Christian McCaffrey is a certified problem. Think about it. Think about it. He not only led the NFL in rushing yards and scrimmage yards, he was first-team All-Pro running back. The second-team All-Pro running back plays for the Rams in the division, Kyren Williams. So this is a division, including the Cardinals, who were top 5 in rushing themselves, that's going to run the football. Look what Seattle did with their 2 top running backs here over the last couple of years, both second-round picks. So it's going to be a black and blue type division. And when it comes to the 49ers, you just got to wonder about the defense. Cardinals are able to gash them last year for over 200 yards rushing, and I think it was one of the big reasons why Steve Wilkes ended up losing his job as defensive coordinator. You went to the Super Bowl and you fired your defensive coordinator. So they promoted the linebackers coach, and they're hoping that they can return to form what they had with DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh when they had the DC positions.
The number of times this Cardinals team will face a rushing attack in the division, probably why they went out and prioritized the defensive line in free agency and then again in the draft to make sure that that first line of defense is a stout line of defense. So that is a look at the regular season. By the way, preseason is out as well. Cardinals will host the Saints, travel to the Colts, and then travel to the Broncos. That game, by the way, has been scheduled. It is Sunday, August 25th. 2:30 on CBS, so somewhat of a nationally televised game, just not in prime time. And remember what Jonathan Gannon said. There will be joint practices against an AFC team. Is that the Colts or is that the Broncos?
Both sound humid, so I don't know.
Well, he said out east, so based on that, we're going to surmise that it's Indianapolis, and the Colts are definitely better than the Broncos.
But anything east of Arizona.
Right, but there's that connection with Shane Steichen.
It would make sense.
With the Colts. Yeah. No international games, which was kind of my gut feeling at this point of not having really heard anything. Typically,
there's a buzz
national,
or something.
Right,
yeah.
like national reporters, and then they leak something here and there. So no international game, which makes me think it's all but a shoe-in to get one next year. So
then next year you got London, Brazil, I believe Spain is on the schedule as well.
Germany.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, Germany, there you go.
Yep. By the way, I'm just going to throw this out there because
I'm nervous because you pulled the mic closer. So where are you going with this?
I want to make sure I get these stats, these numbers right, because I don't have these committed to memory, but I think it's worth citing that we look at this, right, and loudmouths like me mark down the Seahawks for 2 wins and stuff like that, right? You don't know. We have no idea.
Of course.
Here
in May? Of course not.
Right. What's worthless? Give me your top 3 power poll or worthless things in the offseason. Mock drafts, draft grades, and then strength of schedule. Because you never know how these teams are going to fare year to year. And you look at the fact that at least 4 teams have qualified for the playoffs in every season where they weren't in the playoffs the year before. 1 team has gone worst to first, winning their division the season after finishing in or tied for last place in 19 of the last 21 years. Houston was that team last year. Some people are speculating it could be the Bears this year. That's how out of control the Bears hype train is right now. So you have all these type of stats, right? 2 teams have won their divisions the season after missing the playoffs in 20 of the last 21 years. That's 2 teams who missed the playoffs yet won their division the next year. So there's an amazing amount of, I don't know, some people get mad when you call it parity, but just equality. And unless you're Carolina and you're an outlier and you're just really way off the grid, it doesn't take much at times to make a few tweaks and add a few parts, and all of a sudden you can change your fortunes around in the standings.
All on paper, and that's all we have right now. Only 6 other teams have a lesser schedule strength than the Arizona Cardinals based off of last season's opponents. But so much changes between last season and this upcoming season.
Kind of bummed we don't have the Falcons. We don't even get to talk about who we think their quarterback would have been.
You know what? Yeah, and you know what's interesting about the Falcons? Falcons had the worst strength of schedule last year and defied the odds and still finished below 500 and didn't make the playoffs. So there you go.
Anything is possible.
Yeah, that's on that front.
Yeah, no holiday games either.
No Halloween, no Thanksgiving, no Christmas.
No New Year's Eve.
And that's unusual because, 2 of the last 3 years? All 3 of the last? I mean, it's been either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
Christmas the last 2 years. Thanksgiving might have been the year before that run, so yeah.
Yeah. So
New Year's Eve last year.
Paul, you got to spend time with the family.
But you are traveling before and after Christmas, but the fact it's on a Wednesday and you'll be home for both Christmas Eve and Christmas, once again, the schedule gods did us well in a lot of different aspects of this. There's no doubt about that.
For more information on the schedule, azcardinals.com. For information on how to buy tickets, you want to be at State Farm Stadium to see this team in action in 2024. azcardinals.com/buy tickets. That's azcardinals.com/buy tickets. I think we're ready for some football.
Once again, the marketing mantra this year, everybody now, 2023 dip for a 2024 rip. Okay, and you see it right here and how it might play out right in front of you now in the schedule.
Danny, you need to trademark that now so you get the residual and the royalties off that.
I already missed hashtag let there be a 4th QB.
I'm telling you, you get through those first 6 games leading up to Week 7 against the Chargers, you can just go 500 in those first 6, and all of a sudden, with 7 playoff teams, you get the 3 wild cards. You can stay in that wild card hunt the rest of the way. And we know how the Cardinals performed in December last year. They seemed to hit their stride when other teams were starting to fade. So my big picture game plan, you stay in the wild card hunt. In year 2 of the Jonathan Gannon, Monty Austin-Fort reset, the big red reset, if you will, and you're at 500 or better going into December, and down the stretch you come against a very manageable schedule based on the opponents, at least as we sit here in May. And then all of a sudden, I think it is realistic to think Cardinals are knocking on the door of a playoff spot.
You gotta take advantage of being home at State Farm Stadium for 3 of your first 4 games. You have to start strong.
The start is going to be crucial. Getting out of the blocks is going to be an absolute must if you want to be playing those meaningful games in December. But again, that is 5 playoff opponents in your first 6 games. So that does not make it easy, but again, win at home, do well in the division, give yourself a chance.
And that's why it's a big if. Put it in capitals. If you can just stay around 500, getting into the bye, and then look at down the stretch you come. Twice against the Seahawks, at the Vikings with a rookie quarterback, and then you have the Panthers and the Patriots, and then those 3 or last 5 are at home, then obviously you're going to have to earn it. You got to take on the Rams and the Niners to close out the season. Big-time division rivals.
We waited a long time for the schedule. It is out, and now if you have information or more information or you want to look more in detail on this schedule, again, it is up on azcardinals.com. For Dani Sureck, Paul Calvisi, I'm Craig Grialou. This has been the 2024 Arizona Cardinals Schedule Release Show.